For now, while people are still walking in, I would like to introduce Marcel, who is going to give a nice presentation. I heard he was still preparing some slides this morning. Yesterday.
During lunch. Yeah, I added some.
So, looking forward to hearing your talk.
Thanks. So, hello everybody. My name is Marcel Kornegoor. I hope all the projections and screens will be working, and let's get started. So, my talk will be a bit different than the talk before. It will be less technical, so be prepared. So, yeah, a little bit about me. I'm a bit of in between two jobs. At first, I'm co-owner and director of AT Computing, which is an open source consultancy and training company. But I'm also what's called head of learning at Complementaire Group, which is the parent company, where I spend my days trying to figure out nice ways to improve our training courses for our customers, together with a team of companies. And recently, I became the co-founder of what's called DOSBA, the Dutch Open Source Business Alliance, which is an initiative here in the Netherlands to make open source driven companies collaborate more. We didn't have such an alliance for 20 years in the Netherlands, and now, especially with all the politics going on, it's a good moment to gather and see if we can make open source a stronger ecosystem in the Netherlands. I have some features. I love, obviously, open source software. I like to provide trainings and also to learn a lot. And I try to share my knowledge every now and then, so that's a part of my mission today. I also have a couple of bugs. The most important one is I produce a lot of bad word jokes. And for the people from Groningen, I do not like poffert. Yeah, sorry, I don't like it. So, why am I here today? First is I like to share my views. So I go to places, I talk to companies, I talk to a lot of peers within the cybersecurity community, but also from other jobs within IT. And that gives me some perspective. And my general conclusion for the last couple of years already is that we have a fundamental lack of knowledge within IT in the broadest sense of the word. So that's why I'm here. So I hope to do something about it with this talk. But be aware, it's not going to magically disappear after this talk. So if you have the idea that you will walk out and know everything, you will be disappointed. But I hope that I will clarify why this is an issue, and especially in cybersecurity, as we are talking about today. So let's start with the basics. What is actually knowledge? So this is a definition. You can Google it and you will get it as a first result. But it's based on three main ingredients. So first, there needs to be an awareness of facts. Well, that's a special form of information nowadays, since facts seem to be discussed all the time. The second thing is that you need to be aware of information. So if some information is reaching you, that you know that it's reaching you and that you know how to deal with it. That's part of gaining knowledge. And the third thing is that you need to actively experiment and apply the other two to learn and to become more experienced with the subject. And the end goal of the knowledge is, so the result is that you will have a theoretical or a practical understanding of a certain subject. So that's the goal of gaining the knowledge. So all this together makes that you can say, I have a certain amount of knowledge about a certain subject. So let's pick a subject and let's talk about pencils. Who here has ever used a pencil? Yeah, most of you, I expected it. But I think less of you will know actually what a pencil is, what it's made of, and how it's made. So let's have some trivia on pencils. It's usually made of cedar wood. Not just every piece of wood, but cedar wood. And the fun thing is that although it's still a pencil, the more you dive into it, the more interesting it becomes. Because you can ask yourself, why cedar wood and not some oak or some other type of wood? And there's reasons for it. Because it's a soft kind of wood. And that's good if you have it in your hand. It's nice on the touch. But also it's rot resistant. And that's very handy if you store your pencils, that they will stay in the same form as you store them and not grow fungus or any specific animals on them. Also, cedar wood sharpens easily. And that's pretty nice if you break your lead, that you can just sharpen it and it will not splinter, and it will easily do so. Also, it's easy to lacquer or easy to stain, so if you want to give it a nice color, cedar wood is pretty fine. And a bonus, it seems to smell great and also be attractive. I did not know that wood had that properties, but given that the internet says so, it must be true. So, another thing is that the lead of a pencil is actually made from clay and graphite. It's a mixture. And depending on the mixture, the hardness of the lead varies. So if you have like the H or the HB numbering on the pencil, that says something about the mixture of lead and graphite. The more graphite there is, the softer the lead will be. And over 1 billion in US numbers, so 40 miljard, pencils are sold every year on planet Earth. So that's more around 2 pencils for every person on the planet. It's quite a lot. And it doesn't use actual lead. It's still stuck around. So also in Dutch, it's a potlood, but it doesn't use actual lead, which is a good thing because it's quite poisonous. But it has been called so for ages, and it will probably be still around. So another fun fact is that when making a pencil, the lead is not drilled into the wood, but it's actually 2 slates of wood that get slots drilled into them, and the lead is laid in the slot, and there is glue put on, and then the 2 slots are glued together and put under pressure to actually make the pencil. Everybody knew that, of course. Who has used audio cassette tapes? Oh, there's fewer hands, so I think that's a bit of a generation thing here. This is an audio cassette, and you can do the same trick here. So this is some trivia on compact audio cassettes. So it's almost entirely made out of plastic. It's actually containing a thin plastic tape, and that tape is coated with a ferromagnetic coating. And that allows it to wound up on reels. It's around 90 meters of tape inside a small cassette. And that tape can be magnetized and semi-permanently store audio or data in general on the tape. So if you use another magnet, it will be wiped or rearranged in some other data, but as long as you store it in a safe place, the data is there in a magnetized form. And it's invented already in 1928 in Germany, but it really became popular when Philips introduced the compact cassette, which is the picture you saw previously. And this can be played back on a variety of devices nowadays. I see already some eyebrows, like, where's this going to? Bear with me. So, who has owned one of these? Even fewer hands now. It's becoming more niche now, yep. I definitely had a Walkman. It was like my first big spending when I had my newspaper job. It was 69 guilders back in the days, and it was like a really large amount of money for a Walkman that also had a radio, so it was really cool. And what also is cool, and you probably didn't know, is that with a magnetic tape viewer, you can actually see the audio on the tape. So it's a stereo track, so you have 2 separate audio tracks, but it's you have an A side and a B side, so it's actually 2 channels of stereo audio that you can record. And you can actually make it visible, so this is the song that you have recorded on the tape. All right, so as mentioned, what does this have to do with cybersecurity? Get to the point. Yes. So we have seen in the introduction the 3 main ingredients of knowledge. So we have covered some facts, there is some information, and we are on our way to gather some theoretical and practical understanding of what a pencil is and what a cassette tape is. So let's see. Well, yeah, we covered the facts, we covered some information about it, some trivia. But now you have all been educated, but we need to do some practice as well. And this is where it becomes interesting, because both the pencil and the cassette have an intended use case. So for a pencil, it is designed to write and to draw or to sketch. That's the intended purpose of a pencil. That's why it's invented. The same goes for the audio cassette. It's intended to record and replay audio recording. So you can record your favorite song and start dancing in an awkward way. It's all possible and it's designed for it. And this is also interesting. I downloaded this image and it was called like this. It's pretty long and it has something to do with the pleasant women, but it's only a hand, so strange. But if you look at this from a cybersecurity perspective, there is a real big difference between what we have just learned and cybersecurity. Because in most jobs, you focus on executing the intended use in the intended way, so in the desired way. If you're going to configure, I just learned a lot about Windows and RPC calls. If you're going to configure a Windows system, you will do so by the best practice from the vendor. And that will tell you what's intended to use and how to use it and how to install it. But with cybersecurity, it's all about the unintended use cases and the undesired way of using stuff. So that's a different field of play. And this requires a lot of more knowledge because there are far more ways to use a certain object in unintended ways than in intended ways. Also, there are far more undesired ways of using it than desired ways of using it. So this requires you to have more knowledge about what's possible and not only looking at what's intended with it. So these are two examples of unintended use from the same pencil. You can use it to keep your hair in place. It's not my problem, but some people have it. But also you can use it to reset your modem or your router or whatever device you have that has a small pin that you can use the tip of the pencil to reset it. It's not intended, but it can be used this way. Ah, this is bad. It's not playing. This was a hilarious movie of a guy using two pencils as a drum track to record a drum track, but it's not working. But also unintended use. Also, a pencil and a cassette can be used to weaponize, and that's something we like in security. It's perfect for stabbing. It's not intended to use it that way, but there will be people killed using a pencil. And also the audio cassette tape can perfectly be used to record propaganda, which definitely will be the case as well. This is not advice. Also, these are subject to vulnerabilities. So there are attack vectors that may or may not be applicable to the object at hand. So as you can see, they both will burn. They might be interested in cows or magnets, but especially they will suffer from the tariffs. So that's the most important thing to know. And this way, you can start to develop a certain knowledge and a certain understanding that's a level deeper. So by looking at the object, which can be a pencil or an audio cassette, or it can be a certain IT tool or a certain platform that you're going to use or certain technologies, you will get a better understanding of what it's intended for, what you can do with it, but also what it's not intended for, and what you should not do with it, but what is still possible. And this means that to let the knowledge sink in deeper, you will have to be a bit creative, to think outside the box, to experiment and to learn that way. And also you need to be very curious to see, can I do with it? What can I do with it that's not on the menu or that's not in the manual of the object? But this also has to do a lot with skill and competence. So still studying what you're going to use is important. And this goes as well for playing the piano, to learn how to play the piano. You can first start to understand how the instrument works. So you need to know what the design is, how to make sound with it, etc. Also, it's very handy if you're able to read notes, because then that way you can understand or read music that other people have played. This can also be reading source code in a certain programming language, so that you can read programs that others have written, so you can review them and see if that's all okay or not. And then, if you're going to compose your own music, it's very handy if you know something about composition and know how to arrange stuff and how to use certain chords or keys in your composition. And this is all possible without touching the piano. And you can reach some SANS or ICS squared certification and live on very happily within IT security. But yeah, this misses quite a point. So if you're going to study cybersecurity or piano without actually doing it, without actually playing the piano, you're still not making music. And if you're going to give a concert or you want to perform in front of an audience, you really have to practice a lot. Just do it. Play the piano, throw all your facts and information to it, and start to make music. And this is the only way to become proficient in playing the piano, and this is the only way to become proficient in cybersecurity and know how you can misuse something to get a certain result. And it was actually quite interesting in the previous talk, where you had all the different steps that were required to reach like the admin level. All those steps have been discovered probably by a lot of trial and error by doing so. You won't find it on Google. You won't find it by only reading a book. You will probably only find it by trying, and getting to know how to misuse it or how to walk around the intended use cases. And all this practicing, all this studying results in an increase of your competence level. And I'm not saying this is like the truth, but this is a quite famous graph where you have 4 different levels of being competent in something. And the first on the bottom is that you're unaware of your incompetence. So this does mean that you do not know what you do not know. And that's really hard, because then you will also not know where to start with your journey to become more proficient in something. But let's assume that you get some help, then you can come to the conclusion that you're aware that you're incompetent. So you're conscious that you do not know some things or are not aware of some things. And if you take it a little further, you can become competent on a conscious level. And this means that if you try your best, so you're consciously working on something, you can make it happen and make it work. And then you're almost there, then you're getting quite proficient, but there's a final level, and that's where you become proficient unaware. And this is that it feels like a second nature. And I always find it interesting if you see Max Verstappen racing around a circuit. He's just, the car and he are one. He's just so unconsciously competent in a Formula 1 car or in anything with wheels. That's because he practiced, and he really became like on the top level. And that's something you can only reach if you keep practicing and keep focusing on becoming better at a certain subject. So this is really the area you want to be within cybersecurity, that you practice it a lot so you become consciously competent, or even better, unconsciously competent. During lunch, we had a bit of a discussion, can a developer be a good hacker, or can a hacker be a good developer? And I'm a bit skeptical about it, because it's 2 different competencies. And it might be that you are writing a lot of code as a developer and become unconsciously good at it. But that doesn't mean that you're good at hacking, because it's a different way of training. If you're constantly focusing on writing the best code, it's not the same as constantly training on writing the code that can be misused most often. So the one is more creative, and the other one is just becoming better at the intended use. So the same goes for mastering Kali Linux and all the tools it comes with. The same goes for Python, independent if you're going to use it for bad or for worse, or for the intended use case or unintended use case. And to see how this works, I've put up a small experiment. So I'm going to show an image, and as soon as you see what's wrong, please raise your hand. Let's see how long it will take in general for you to see it. It takes some time for some people, but it goes quite quick. Yep, still some hands showing. It's not totally clear, but there's a sticky on the bottom. So this is a demonstration of the unconscious competence. So within like a couple of seconds, you saw, oh, this is a computer screen. You probably saw what was going on, and that there was a root password on the screen, and you immediately realized that's not good. That's not the way we do cybersecurity. And you weren't actively thinking about it. It was going without effort. It was not really hard to make this calculation. But there was a lot going on unconsciously. So you already probably see, oh, this is Kali Linux, or Kali Linux-ish, because it was generated. You understand what the root account is, you know how to act when you see this, and you know who to fire if this is the case. That's immediately spot on what you know. So, this is fast thinking. Another one. If you know it, raise your hand. There's one hand, a couple of hands, but it definitely takes longer. Yes, still more hands. Yeah, it's about the same amount as it was before, but it took longer. So, what happened? This was triggering your conscious competence. So now you had to read the code and think, what's going on here? And this meant that most of you noticed that this code is prone to SQL injection. It was just a variable directly pasted into an SQL query, which is not the best practice. And sadly, some of you just raised the hand because the person next to you did. That statistically is true. And this actually involved conscious thinking. So you had to read the code, you had to actively think about it. This required effort and cognitive load. So the other one was in a couple of seconds, just it was there, now you had to work for it. And this is the difference between the two ways of working. And this is what's known as slow thinking. This is a disclaimer. ChatGPT warned me that I asked for Kali Linux with a root password sticky on it. That was violating the policy, but it drew it anyway, so it was a bit funny. All right, so the two thinking systems are quite different in nature, because system one, the fast system that we have seen with the Kali Linux example, is training your long-term memory. And this is what you do in daily life, recognizing faces, knowing how to read a face so you can instantly see if somebody is happy or angry. This is all part of the first system. And this is constantly operating, but unconsciously. So you're constantly using it, but it's not costing you any effort, not fully conscious in that case. And the second system is what we saw in the second example, where you actively have to think and have to reflect on what's going on. And that's causing effort. So this is what you're mostly aware of doing during the day. And this is why you can say after a hard day of hacking that you say, well, I'm pretty tired, because you've used system 2 a lot that day. If you find this interesting, there's a book from Daniel Kahneman that details these systems in a very interesting way. So that's some advice. All right, so the thing is that our brain is not fixed, so you can improve the power of your system 1, so the fast system. And you can do so by doing and by learning. So training actively on certain subjects will improve your system 1 ability. And this is universal, so if you're going to start reading notes when learning the piano, at first you will have to use system 2 a lot, because you say, well, what are those strange dots? But the more you practice, it becomes easier. And eventually, it becomes to start being part of system 1. And you will find it comfortably, and you will not be reading it effortful anymore. And this means that a proficient musician will read score as sentences. It will just look at the score and say, well, I know what to play, because I have already scanned it, and I'm aware of it. And I've actually experienced this during a recording session where a musician got a piece of paper and instantly said, this is just random notes. Because he was so trained at reading scores that he immediately saw that this was a strange way of writing music. And it was purpose of the play, so it was not a mistake. But it was amazing to see that it was so fast to see this is strange. I have never seen this before. My system 1 is not recognizing it. And this comes as a universal. So for the scientists here among you, you will recognize this formula. I don't, but you will if you have trained system 1. It goes for threat modeling, for hacking, etc. It's just training your system 1 and training your brain. So, it's trained based on what you train it upon, and it does not mean that if you're an expert in domain 1, that you're automatically also a domain in the other areas. So it's domain specific. Also, it keeps evolving because our brain keeps making new connections every time you train it. So it can become better. And this is a reason why grandmasters in chess are so amazingly good in reading the board, because they've done so many times, their system 1 is all about chess. But it might be that they are really bad at other forms of puzzles. It might be. So keep training your system 1 and you'll become more proficient, and also learn from others. That's also a really efficient way to train system 1. And this is something we do in our daily lives all the time. From when we grow up, we will look at our parents and see what are they doing, and that's the way we learn. Keep doing that. And this also involves music. Play together with others, and you will learn a whole lot of new competences, and you will train a whole different level of your brain. So this is also something that's in practice with cybersecurity incidents. If you know that Welcome 2020 is a weak password, probably you will not use it. Also, phishing mails, MFA fatigue, 98% of all attacks are still preventable with some basic knowledge. But if you do not get trained on it and you're not aware of it and not using system 1 to say, well, I locked my system, or I'm aware of my MFA messages without even thinking about it, that will drastically improve your security immediately. But it's hard to get there because you need to train a lot. So, to sum up, this means that if you get tangled up within a certain cybersecurity situation, it might be complex, but you know that you can trust that if you keep practicing and keep doing the same thing, that you will come up with a brilliant solution that's not costing any effort because system 1 will help you with it. And this means that you know what the relation between different parts are. And the solution is very simple if you know what to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel.
You're welcome.
Learned something new about pencils, I suppose.
That's great.
Thank you for your talk.
Yes, thank you.
I will grab that one.
Yep.